Welcome to our Made for More podcast. You're here for our Let's Talk series. This is where we get in a lot of different people and hear about their journeys and what it's been like for them with mental ill health. We're going to cover topics such as anorexia, depression, self-image, and OCD. Please be advised that in these topics they could be sensitive to some people and could be triggering. If this is you, feel free to skip to the next podcast. We have lots of resources on our support page for you, and we have linked below specific organisations where you can go if you need extra support.
Hi and welcome to the Made for More podcast. My name is Jamie. I'm excited to be hosting this episode. I'm joined today with Adam Stewart.
Hello.
Adam is a great guy, a very funny man. I'm setting him up here. And we're going to be talking today about mental health, and I'm particularly focusing on the topic of addiction and mental health. It's probably important to say at the start of this podcast that we are not medical experts. In fact, you probably couldn't get any two people who are...
I'd be disbarred
immediately. Any less medical experts.
Yeah.
But what we are is we're just two guys who want to talk about mental health. Adam's going to share his story, and we really believe in the power of a story and how it can help encourage other people to navigate what's going on in their lives, and maybe make some changes and learn from Adam. So thank you so much for joining us. Adam, just suppose start up by telling us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Who are you? Any interesting facts?
So my name is Adam. I don't know about interesting facts. Like, it was probably a pretty normal childhood. Not going too depth because I know there's a time restraint in this, so I'm not going to go into the whole. But I had great parents and a pretty normal, probably quite sheltered childhood. Went to youth club and went to was in Bible class until I was 15, which is not the norm now. Probably But I lived in Saintfield, so anyone knows Saintfield, it's like a village just out near Ballinhinch, Carried off sort of direction, and everyone knows everyone. My mum and dad lived there. Mum and dad had me quite late after my brother and sister. You would probably say, going back on things, up until I was 29, they would have probably said it was a mistake.
Right, okay.
But well, no, they wouldn't have told me
they
that.
Wouldn't have told you that, okay.
Logically, I sort of could have worked that out.
You did the maths a wee bit?
Yeah, did the maths, yeah. But obviously it was 29 years of sort of like ups and downs. I went primary school, then went to a school called Inst in Belfast.
The master race?
Well, that's what they call it.
As they call themselves.
As my mum says, I just learned bad habits.
Okay, yeah.
So, but no, it was a great school. I had a lot of happy memories and played a lot of sport and met a lot of friends. I suppose I had a lot of opportunities I wouldn't otherwise I would have had. I suppose we're talking about like mental health and where does it start, and I've never done one of these podcasts purely and simply because I suppose I work in a company called NI Supplements, and I don't know if you go to the gym you might follow it.
If you follow on Instagram?
Follow on Instagram, yeah. It's
a good shout out, good plug.
It's a good plug, but it's definitely, I do less of the social media now because we've moved to a bigger premises and I'm just constantly counting stock and trying to find it. Yeah. So I don't really have time for the social media, but obviously that's where a lot of people will know the shop from a social media point of view. And I think mental health, obviously, I know this is about people being more aware of people's mental health, but I also think that social media has done a lot of good for mental health, but I think it's probably, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably been quite bad for people's mental health too, especially during a pandemic. And I've had a very mixed, sort of tumultuous relationship with social media, from an addiction and a sobriety maintenance point of view, and just from a resentment point of view, that I think a lot of people use the social media or the mental health Me Too to gain adoration, likes. Maybe I'm being very insensitive here, but I think I'm probably being, you can probably say that in a lot of cases that's the way, and a lot of people don't read into social media and they just go, whatever, but it sort of got to me a bit because I think there's people riding a bandwagon and not really understanding that it's not about getting adoration for talking out, but it's about getting help and trying to help others. And I think that people have forgotten that there is a lot of good to be done from anonymously helping people, from not talking about who you've helped, when you've helped, why you've helped them, to get likes and be well known for being a hero, but actually just wanting to do something for someone without wanting anything in return, without wanting them to go and tell their mate how amazing you are, or go on, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the reality of social media, isn't it? It's a world of comparison and likes and gaining popularity and everything, even stuff that can be really good, like people sharing about mental health, I suppose can be misused, and that's why then I suppose you've a story to tell, but haven't wanted to because you don't want to use it, to just, as you say, sort of just gain likes and attention, but you'd rather. I know you, and you're always very keen to help other people and to share what you've learned, and you do that quietly in the background, and that's why today it really is an amazing opportunity for you, though, to again help people. That's what this is about. This is you saying, listen, sadly, this is what I've had to go through. Yeah. This is what I've learned, and yeah. So, like, I suppose where does your story start when you think of addiction and your journey with your struggles and your mental health?
We spoke briefly before this, and I'm glad we did, because you don't really ever think when was the inception of my problems, like when, but I think probably I went to a school where you had to be, it took a very sort of strong-minded 11-year-old to not want to join a clique and not want to be fit in somewhere. And my mum was the only person, like, I came across probably a little bit, probably cocky at times when I was younger, but like I think my mum was the only person who understood that it was a put on.
And based out of an insecurity?
Yeah, based out of insecurity. Your mum always knows. Like, I think,
absolutely.
In most cases your mum always knows, and my mum knew that, I was a very insecure child growing up. And when I went to school against, you come from a primary school like St. Field Academy, where it's a small niche, and you maybe win things at sports day.
That's it.
And you think, I am Usain Bolt
because
I've won the sprint.
Yep, absolutely.
And then you go to Inst and you're like, you don't get a look in. There's 10 people across the quad that are immediately more talented at anything that you're, so you sort of then join the first year, like, I went down the whole thing of trying to do as well as I could in exams, and obviously you fit in and you try to fit in with people. And we spoke about this, I remember being, you call it bullying, but I mean, like, it's not, it's just, I think it's just being young. Kids don't understand. Kids at 11, 12, 13 don't really understand how their words affect. And I don't think it makes them bad kids. I think it just, they're maybe going through something and they don't really understand how to go the right way about it.
Yeah. So
it's very few kids will turn around and say, don't say that to him or her, because that's not nice. They'll go, if I don't agree or I don't join in this mockery of someone, like, I'm going to get...
Yeah, and we were chatting about that this morning, how, like, even for me, it was quite similar stories. Like, again, you find yourself as a teenage boy wanting to fit in, wanting to be part of the cool kids, one of the lads, and you'll do anything to be accepted, and if that means it's harsh jokes or harsh with your words at other people's expense, sadly at that age, like we both say, we look back and think, that's exactly what we did, and that sort of desire to fit in leads to a lot of actions, not just your words. And I think that's what you found, wasn't it?
No, yeah, 100%. And I remember, I suppose more because I was a deep thinker. Like, when I did something and I knew I'd done the wrong thing, it did affect me. So when I look back, I still remember weird, poignant moments, even at an early age, of things that I wish I hadn't have done and said to people. And I've had conversations in my later life with people I went to Inst with. Yeah. And, they've spoke to me in recent years and go, like, you're really, like, you're actually dead on. You've been an absolute knob in school, you know, like, and I was like, I know, and I'm sorry, like, you know, but absolutely. I was,
And I shared with you this morning as well, arriving to a school we've made for more, and a teacher there who went to school, and actually having to think, I need to go across and just say, sorry how I behaved in school, you know, and it's wisdom of age, isn't it? Now, you're obviously a lot older than me, but you get we've been more wiser as I think you're born, you're brought up, you're nurtured, you're told what's right and wrong, but you also then go into a new environment and then you're scared about getting judged, and then you adapt, and you maybe just adapt the wrong way, and you maybe get into crowds. And what I found was I developed a facade, and it mainly started, like, without going through early formative years, it mainly started when drinking started happening. So, like, I found that drink gave me a confidence and gave me a lack of care. Yeah.
give me, like when I took a drink, I stopped caring, I became like almost like a character, which I then had felt that I had to keep up.
Yeah. So you were saying you're a bit of a deep thinker, so the alcohol almost turned that off and allowed
Switched
you
it off.
just to be this new person.
Yeah.
It was the mask almost to perform.
Yeah.
And we talked earlier, and you used the word, it's this idea you want to be the legend, the hero, and alcohol, in a sense, I suppose from a young age, allowed you to strive for that, did it, in a sense?
It allowed me, maybe, do you know what? It could have been that behind my back, people were saying he's an absolute idiot, but I just felt that I had a persona.
Yeah.
Through drinking, through alcohol, through doing silly things on the drink, through always trying to one-upmanship sort of thing on drink, and then, but I suppose, it led you to do things that when you were sober, and this is what, I lead on to addiction. This is another reason why I have done the odd social media post in the past about it, but I sort of tend to in recent years not have, about alcoholism and about a drug addiction, because people find that when you hear about addiction, it's synonymous with the drunk on the street that has nothing, that is wearing old clothes, that is begging.
Yeah. Stereotype.
Yeah, they think stereotype, but I mean, one thing I learned when I first went into AA in 2014 was that I knew that I had an issue with alcohol, and when I went in and I got on a program of recovery, I realized that the first thing you learn is that with any addiction, it is what I was told was you're powerless over alcohol, and your life is unmanageable with alcohol in it. And that doesn't have to mean one night. I said to you earlier, the worst thing you can do is have a good night, because, and this is another thing, people say alcoholism is a disease. I always got very sort of worried and panicky about saying I would never be like, what's a disease,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with people who have, they have terminal illnesses.
Yeah.
They didn't ask for them. Nobody deserves them. And they don't really have control over it.
Yeah.
They're waiting it out. They're trying to think positively, but they have an illness that essentially it's controlling them.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a disease in the mind. I was told straight off the bat, it's not the drinking, it's the thinking. So it's not the actual. It can be anything. For some people it can be chocolate. I know that sounds silly, but a lot of people can be chocolate and eating. Some people it can be drugs. Some people it can be gambling. For me, it was alcohol. It's not actually the drinking itself, the actual physical act of taking the drink. It's the way your mind works. It's your thinking, your obsessions. So essentially what it is, you have a mental obsession with it and a physical allergy. So it changes you, who you are, and it might not be physically changes you, but it emotionally, spiritually, and mentally changes the person that you are, your moral compass. They talk about Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
You do things under the influence of alcohol that you wouldn't even think about. It would be so far from what you would want to do sober that the thought of doing it drunk would scare you. But when you get drunk, you're out of control.
Yeah.
Different person.
Yeah.
And then that starts the spiral of guilt, shame, and remorse.
And when it comes to, so you're a young teenage boy, normal upbringing, Northern Ireland, big grammar school, want to fit in, sport, start drinking, binge drinking probably in the streets, house parties, like a lot of teenagers do in our culture. How does it transcend then from that, into an addiction? When do you look back and think, okay, it was that moment that I'd already lost a bit of control?
Well, look, I mean, this is another thing I haven't shared a great deal, but I think most people probably know. A long time ago, 2000, it was about 23 years of age, 2008, I was involved in a really bad drink driving accident, in which I was the driver. And without going into details, I had no right to be in the car at all. I remember very little about the actual accident itself, but one thing I do know is I hit a fella who was working on the roads the next morning, at very early the next morning after a night out, and I all I remember is stopping the car, So essentially my immediate instinct was to stop the car and get out. Now I don't remember too much about it, but there was people who bore witness to me shouting things like, please get help, screaming for help. I mean, you can Google it, but I mean, the actual, what happened, that was something that obviously you never foresee happening.
Yeah.
As my mum always said, you know, there by the grace of God go I. I know plenty of people have drank drove. My greatest regret, and something I mean, people say you can't live with guilt, but I mean, you can't turn it off either.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'll never get over, in terms of how much self-loathing, guilt for doing it. I mean, I suppose it's all right, you know, going out. It's not all right, but going out and getting drunk and acting aged. But whenever you're someone like myself who's not physically violent, who's not someone who wishes harm upon others, when you do something like that, it's a new level of guilt, shame, and remorse. And I mean, it took long story short. It took 2 years to come to court, and then I was sentenced in 2011 for 5.5 years. So I did half of that in prison. I started off McGabry and then was moved quite quickly to McGilligan and spent the rest of my sentence there.
And that's a consequence that, you know, as a young man, just drinking, partying with your friends, you never thought that all those small decisions, you know, and getting behind the wheel of a car would ever lead to you then having to spend that time in prison, you know. And none of us think like that. None of us think that it will be me. I think culturally we always think, but that would never be me. Like, I would never do that. But the reality is, when there's alcohol in the system or drugs in the system and we lose control, we make some bad choices. Now, what we're going to do is we're gonna stop there today, and this is going to be the first part of a 2-part episode with Adam. So we'd love you to join us next time. And again, if anything we've chatted about has impacted you, you know, if this has maybe brought up some stuff in your own life, or you feel that you need to talk to someone, we'd really encourage you to reach out and ask for help. There's all sorts of information on our website, Made for More NI, that you can go to, click on the links, and that will just signpost you to where you can continue to maybe learn about this, have some conversations, and hopefully get the help that you may find you need. But thank you so much, Adam, for sharing so honestly.
No problem.
Thanks for tuning in to our Made for More podcast on our Let's Talk series. We hope you enjoyed today, and we hope you got a lot out of it. Please let us know what you think. We love hearing from you. Just a reminder that this is not a medical podcast, so if you're struggling with mental ill health, please contact your GP or use one of our links below for extra support.